Fam, kill the lights. Turn the volume all the way up. And if you have someone next to you, hold their hand tight. Because what you are about to hear is not a bedtime story. It's not some urban legend. It is an open wound. It is a scar on the earth that is still bleeding. This is a true story. About dirty money. About an ego so big it eclipsed the sun. And about a justice so cold, so heavy, that when it finally landed, it shattered everything. My name is Michael. I'm 38 years old. And for a long time, I thought the worst problems in life were the cliches. Losing your job, a bad breakup, or drowning in student loans and mortgage rates. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. Because on April 17th, 2023, I didn't just lose a possession. I didn't lose property value. I lost a piece of my soul. On that day, they murdered my family. I bought my place back in 2020, just before the world went crazy. It wasn't a mansion. Far from it. It was an older house in an established neighborhood. The floors creaked. The pipes rattled. But it was mine. And in the center of the backyard, there was something that no amount of Bitcoin or stocks could buy. A king, a silent giant, a white oak, over 150 years old, pre-Civil War, 80 feet tall. Imagine a 7-story building made of life, a canopy that stretched 70 feet wide like a massive green shield, a trunk so thick it took 3 grown men to wrap their arms around it. We called him the Old Man. He wasn't just wood and leaves. He was a guardian. He didn't move. He watched. He felt eternal. My parents, who were in their 70s, would sit under his shade during the brutal July heat waves. They swore the temperature dropped 10 degrees under those branches. My nephews learned to climb on his knotted roots, which looked like the ancient veins of the earth itself. And me? I talked to him. When the anxiety hit, when life got too loud, I'd place my hand on that rough bark, and I'd feel a calm that no Xanax could ever give me. That tree had survived the Great Depression. It stood tall while the world went to war. Twice. It survived hurricanes, ice storms, droughts, and decades of human progress. It stood there before my house was built, before the road was paved, before the city even had a name. And because of that, the Old Man was protected. Bolted to his trunk, almost swallowed by the moss, was a bronze plaque from the Department of Natural Resources. It read, "Heritage Tree, State Protected Landmark. Removal or damage is a Class B felony. Fines up to $100,000 plus civil liability." That tree was bulletproof. It was untouchable. It was sacred. At least, that's what I thought. But peace died in 2221. That was the year he moved in next door. Richard Vance. I will never forget that name. It tastes like bile in my mouth. Richard didn't walk. He marched. Richard didn't talk. He commanded. 60-something years old. Expensive veneers. A fake tan. 2 messy divorces. A girlfriend young enough to be his daughter. And a matte black Range Rover that he idled in the driveway at 6 a.m. He bought the property next to mine, demolished the old house, and built a modern glass box. Cold, sterile, and a massive infinity pool, looking directly into my backyard. From day one, he hated the Old Man. It wasn't just annoyance. It was a personal vendetta. First, it was the passive-aggressive comments over the fence. "Hey, buddy, that monster's blocking my sunlight." Hey, the leaves are clogging my pool filters." "The acorns are denting my rover." "The birds, they're pooping on my Italian marble deck." I tried to be a good neighbor. I smiled. I apologized. But I always did the same thing. I pointed to the bronze plaque. "Richard," I'd say, "it's a heritage tree. It's protected by the state. It's been here since before the Civil War." He would just light a cigar, blow the smoke in my direction, and flash that shark smile. That's just hippie nonsense, Mike. In the real world, money talks. Everything has a price tag. Name yours. I'll write the check right now, and I'll have a crew here by noon. I told him no. 1,000 times no. I told him no for 10 grand. I told him no for 50 grand. I told him I wouldn't sell that tree for $1 million. His eyes changed. The look went from annoyance to war. He stopped waving. He started blasting music whenever I sat outside reading. He started dumping his landscaping waste over my fence. And for a long time, that was it. A Cold War. Tense. Quiet. Until the morning of April 17th. 7:14 a.m. I woke up to a sound that still haunts me. Not an alarm, not a siren, but the screaming, mechanical roar of industrial machinery. At first, I thought it was construction down the street, but then I felt it. My bed was shaking. The floorboards were vibrating. It was close. It was right there. I ran out of the back door, barefoot, in my boxers. My heart was hammering against my ribs, and I saw a scene from a horror movie. They had invaded. 3 men I'd never seen before. Hard hats, safety gear, heavy ropes wrapped around the old man's torso, a massive crane towering over Richard's fence, and a 60-inch chainsaw biting into the ancient bark like it was nothing. Sawdust was spraying into the air like gold blood. The smell of raw sap and gasoline filled the yard. It smelled like a slaughterhouse. And there, on his marble balcony, stood Richard. He was wearing a black silk robe, holding a steaming cup of espresso, leaning on the railing, watching, calmly, like he was watching Netflix. I screamed. I screamed so loud I tasted blood. "No! Stop! What are you doing?" I sprinted toward the tree. I tried to climb the fence, but the crane was working from his side. "It's a protected tree. This is a felony. I'm calling the cops." The workers hesitated. The chainsaw idled down for a second. One of the guys looked up at the balcony. Richard turned slowly. He looked me dead in the eye, and he smiled. A true, evil grin of victory. He shouted down, his voice cutting through the noise. "I've been waiting 3 years for this view, Mikey. Today, my son comes back." He didn't say my pool. He said my son, as if he owned the sky itself. He waved his hand at the crew, dismissing me like a bug. "Keep going. Double pay if it's down before the cops show up." And the execution resumed. The branches fell like severed limbs. They hit the ground with a thud that I felt in my teeth. Every crack of the wood sounded like a bone breaking. I saw bird nests smashing onto the grass. I saw history being erased in seconds. I was on the phone with 911, my hands shaking so bad I dropped the phone twice. "Property dispute," they said. "We'll send a unit when we can." When they say civil matter, they take their time. But chainsaws are fast. When they reached the main trunk, when the steel teeth bit into the heartwood, something happened. The workers heard it. I heard it. The old man made a sound. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't physics. It was a groan. A deep, low, vibrating moan that seemed to come from under the ground. One of the workers actually dropped his saw. He looked pale. He muttered something to his foreman. "This feels wrong, boss. This feels alive." "Richard?" Richard laughed. He clapped his hands. He raised his coffee mug in a mock toast to the dying giant. 58 minutes later, when the police cruiser finally rolled up, it was over. 150 years of life. Gone. Just a pile of jagged wood. And a stump. A raw, bleeding wound in the middle of my yard. That afternoon, Richard posted a photo on Instagram. Him, smiling. A glass of Chardonnay, and in the background, the corpse of the old man piled up in my yard. The caption read, "Finally free of the shade and the filth. Property value just went up. Sunshine, state of mind." That night, I stopped crying. I wiped my face. I looked at that stump, and I made a promise to the roots buried in the dark. I swore that Richard Vance was going to pay. Not just a fine. I was going to ruin him. I went to war. I documented everything. I saved every splinter. I hired a lawyer who specialized in tree law. Yes, that's a real thing, and they are vicious. I hired forensic arborists. I called the local news. And then, Richard started playing dirty. He realized I wasn't backing down, so he used his wallet. He tried to paint me as the crazy neighbor. He told the cops I was running a meth lab under the tree, and that's why I wanted to keep it hidden. He claimed the tree was diseased and imminent danger to his home. He falsified reports. He hired private investigators to follow me. He wanted dirt, gambling debts, affairs, anything to blackmail me into dropping the lawsuit. He spent thousands trying to dig up my skeletons, but he found nothing, because I'm boring. I was just a guy who missed his tree. The road to court was hell. 2 years. 2 years of seeing his smug face. 2 years of seeing that empty hole in my yard. But the day finally came. The courtroom was packed. The atmosphere was electric. My lawyer stood up and played the video I recorded that morning. The massive screen showed the crane. It showed Richard in his silk robe toasting the destruction. And then, the sound. The audio captured that deep, terrible groan of the tree falling. The courtroom went dead silent. A woman in the back row gasped. The jury looked disturbed. We called the workers to the stand. We had tracked them down. They were terrified of perjury. They cracked immediately. "Mr. Vance paid us in cash," the foreman admitted, looking at the floor. "He told us he had the permits. He told us the homeowner, me, had agreed to it. He lied to us." Then came the state arborist. He walked up to the stand like an executioner. "Your Honor," he said, "this wasn't just tree removal. This was the destruction of a state heritage landmark. You can't buy a tree like that at a nursery. You can't replace history. The ecological value alone is 6 figures. The historical value? Priceless." Richard tried to testify. He tried to say he was unaware of the specific laws. He played the dumb homeowner card. The judge. God bless her. She lowered her glasses. She held up a photo of the bronze plaque, the one Richard stared at every single day. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice like ice. "Can you read? Or does your ego block your vision?" The verdict wasn't just a win. It was a nuclear strike. The jury found him liable for willful trespass, destruction of property, emotional distress, and the big one, treble damages. In my state, if you intentionally kill someone's timber, you pay 3 times the value, compensatory damages, $150,000, tripled to $450,000, plus punitive damages, plus legal fees, plus the cost of environmental restoration. The total judgment, $1.2 million. Richard turned white, like ghost white. He started sweating through his custom suit. He wasn't crying for the tree. He was crying because his God, his money, had just abandoned him. But I wasn't done. He appealed, of course. He dragged it out. And that's when the smoking gun appeared. A former assistant of his, someone he had treated like trash, sent us a Dropbox link. It contained emails, text messages, and a WhatsApp group chat titled Operation Sunshine. He had been planning it for 3 years. There were bribes offered to city officials, which they refused. There were messages mocking me. "I'm going to chop that firewood and then buy his house for pennies when he cries about it." It proved premeditation. It proved malice. The final judgment came down last June. The appeals court upheld everything and added interest. Richard didn't have the cash. He was asset rich, cash poor, leveraged to the hilt. 2 weeks later, the sheriff's deputies arrived. I stood on my porch and watched. I saw the movers hauling out his Italian leather sofas. I saw the tow truck hooking up the matte black Range Rover. I saw his silk robe tossed into a cardboard box on the curb. They seized the house. They seized the accounts. He lost everything. His view, his pool, his status. I heard he's living in a one-bedroom apartment across town now, selling car insurance. Sometimes I see him at the grocery store. He doesn't look at me. He stares at the floor. As for the old man, I took some of the wood chips and buried them in the soil, but I didn't let him die. With the settlement money, I started the Heritage Fund. We've planted over 200 new white oaks in parks and schools across the state. Thousands of kids are learning about conservation. And the miracle? The stump. That jagged, ugly stump in my yard. Last spring, it pushed out green shoots. Coppicing. It's a survival mechanism. The roots are so deep, so strong, they refuse to quit. 7 new, strong branches are rising from the ruin. The old man is coming back. Every April 17th at 7:14 a.m. I go out to the yard. I play the recording of that groan on a speaker. Not to torture myself, but to remember. And to make sure the neighborhood remembers. And on the new plaque, which is solid steel this time, it reads, "Here stood the old man. Here. His killer lost everything. Money talks, but nature has the last word." The moral of the story is simple. Fam, before you pick up a chainsaw, before you think your bank account makes you a god, make sure you aren't cutting through the very branch you're standing on. If you made it this far, you are part of the family now. Drop a comment below saying, "The old man lives." And share this story. Let's make the algorithm work for us today, so that nobody else ever thinks that green paper is stronger than deep roots.